I don't know if you've seen it.
Let's see. No, I can't see it. Okay.
Let me end this call.
Oh, yes. Okay.
All right. So, apologize for the delays. I was trying to set up the stream to function properly. Okay, to begin with, I'll start with the intro to front-end development. So in this series, we'll be talking about front-end development, what it means, the skills required, and all of the skills necessary to gain along the way to becoming a proficient front-end developer. So I'll start by sharing my screen and let me know if you can see it. Okay, so I created a small website to basically, help us walk through the topic for today. And we are going to be going through what front-end development means, and then we'll be covering the several aspects of front-end development. Then we'll walk through the setup of how to, set up your environment to ensure that you can build websites using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then we start with the basic HTML. And yeah, so to begin with, what is front-end development? So what is front-end development? Front-end development is the practice of creating a user-facing part of a website. So when you go on a website, whatever part you interact with, that's the role of a front-end developer. And it involves implementing visual elements and layouts that users interact with on a day-to-day basis. And typically, the work of a front-end developer is usually done on the browser. And without the browser, well, there's the mobile aspect of front-end development too, but typically most of the work you do as a front-end developer is done on the browser. So we have various aspects of front-end development. On one end, you have designers that create mock-up for you to interpret into um, applications. So when you see your designers work on Figma, I don't know if you guys know what Figma is. Figma is basically a software tool that is used for designing. And when designers, do their stuff on Figma, they transfer this over to you, the front end developer, and it is your job as a front end developer to translate that design into a functioning application and website. So basically, the main goal of front end development is you always want to ensure that you're creating something that is visually appealing and intuitive to users. So I don't know if you've been to sites where you log on and you find it difficult to actually make use of it, or you're finding it difficult to find your way around this site. It just means the front end developer did not do his work well. Well, you can't solely blame the front end developer, but at the same time, they are responsible for ensuring that your journey from point A to point B is something that is very easy and seamless. So, um, one of the other main goal is ensuring websites are responsive and work well on various devices and screen sizes. And typically, you'd realize that when you go on the website, you find that this same website can function well on different screen sizes. Now, it is the work of the front end developer to ensure that for each screen size, whether that be a monitor, a TV, or even a small gadget that has like maybe your watch, yeah, your smartwatch, it is to ensure that whatever you're building, it's it matches these devices and you can work with whatever is built on these devices. You can work with whatever was built on these devices. So another role, one of the major goal of front-end development is also, ensuring that while users are on your website or application, it is very fast. Like there's no lag, there's no delay between, performing an action and seeing the output. So there's also the aspect of accessibility for front-end development. I don't know, typically, if you've seen blind people navigating websites, it's not because they can see what is on the website. It's because the website was built that way to ensure that um, people with disability can make use of the website regardless of their disability. So it is the role of the front-end developer to ensure that um, whatever you're building is accessible by various categories of people. So then lastly, it is your role to ensure that enhancing user experience through interactive elements and animations. So I don't know if you've seen websites as well where you're scrolling through, it's telling a story rather than just, a bland scroll where you're just scrolling through and everything is the same. But typically you use animations and um, use animations to tell a story. And as a front end developer, the majority of your role is you're going to be telling stories with whatever you're building. You're going to be directing users to perform certain actions. You're going to be ensuring that you're driving your user to a specific action on your website. So you do that with interactive elements like buttons, like your cards. ensuring that when a user hovers over a specific part of the page, there's a slight interaction going on there, so the user can know that, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do here. So that is the main goal of front-end development. I don't know if there are any questions for now. Are there any questions for now? Okay, if there is none, then I'll move on to the differences between front end and back end. Now, typically in development, you have various aspects of development. We have the front end and we have the back end development. For front end development, you're solely focused on the user, their device, and how they interact with your application. So on the front end, you are mostly focused on client side programming. And when I say client side programming, it refers to, the languages used to ensure interaction between a user's website and the user. So we typically use HTML and CSS and JavaScript for interaction. So client side is your laptop, your mobile phones, your TV, your smartwatch. That's what I refer to, or I like to see as client side. So its focus is on client side programming, and this programming is done in HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So it deals with everything the user sees and interacts with, like we mentioned earlier. Then it uses language that runs in the web browser. I also mentioned that earlier. HTML, which refers to hypertext markup language, CSS, which refers to cascading style sheets, and JavaScript for ensuring interaction between HTML, CSS, and whatever actions your users are taking on your website. Now, typically, HTML is for building the structure of your website. Now, imagine you have a building, right? You're building an apartment. Typically, you need to have the foundation. Without the foundation, you're unable to, build the apartment. Now, that's what HTML is used for. For CSS, you use it to style the building itself. Now, with CSS, you are ensuring that when the building is structured, okay, what interior decor are we going to be using? Are we going to be painting inside blue? Are we going to be paint? Are we going to be painting Are we going to be painting inside blue? Are we going to be the lightings we're going to use? So that's CSS for you. You're making sure the website is very visually appealing. And for JavaScript, it is, when you click on anything on the website, you want to perform a certain action. That's what JavaScript is used for. So when you click on the button, you want to go to a specific page. When you click on a buy button, you want to go to the checkout page. So that's what JavaScript is used for. Now, front-end development is mostly also concerned with, your layouts and design. Now, when we refer to layouts, there are different type of layouts. You can have your grid layouts, you can have your flex layouts, you can have different type of layouts. But typically, on the front end, you're worried about, okay, how to lay out certain things to ensure that the user understands whatever is going on your website. Now, the front end doesn't exist in silo. it usually communicates with the backend to receive data. Like if it's not just a plain website, it's communicating with the backend to receive data. And it does that via the use of APIs. And so we have backend development. Now we're transitioning to backend development. On the backend, it's mostly concerned about server-side programming. Now, server-side programming like C Sharp, Python, .NET, and on the server side, you're mostly concerned with provisioning data to your users, provisioning um, authentication and authorization to your users. And without the server side, you're unable to ensure that um, users can access what they need to access at specific point in time. So the server side is mostly where you have your user accounts, your user details, um, things that user can do on your website. That's where you have all the data. That's what is referred to as server side. And it deals with data storage, security, and application logic. Now, data storage, it's when we refer to data storage here, we are mostly referring to databases. And databases mostly run on the server side. And in order to ensure security on your application, you also need in order to ensure security on your application, you need servers, or else any other person can just randomly come to your site, purchase something without paying, without, without actually, what's the right word to use? Without doing the necessary things that should be done before they make a purchase. That's why we need security. And security is usually done on the server side as well. And the server side restricts you from accessing things that you're not supposed to access. And the languages we use to run server sides applications are Python, Ruby, Java, PHP, and Node.js. So I already mentioned that it manages databases and handle complex computation. It implements business logic and data processing. That is also complex computations. So it provides APIs for front end to consume. Now, when you have a website and you try to log in to the website, the moment between you clicking a button and transitioning to the website and being authorized to access the website, that moment when you enter your username and password, when you click on the button to continue, the data you entered on the front end, which is the input form, it is being sent to the back end to process the data and ensure that whatever data you're imputing is correct. Now, um, without the backend, we would not be able to do that. Everybody would have access to whatever they want to have access to without any restrictions. So, moving on to the common front-end technologies, like I mentioned earlier, we have HTML, we have CSS, and we have JavaScript. Like I mentioned, it defines the structure and semantic meaning of web content. And HTML is typically a document. I like to think of it as a document. It is a document, right? Where for each part of the document, you decide what you want to write on the document. Now, in order to write on that document, you have several tags that you can use to write on the document. We'll get to the implementation of this later on. But for now, I'm trying to explain what HTML is. Now, with these tags, you have headings, you have paragraphs, you have lists. These tags enable you to write whatever you want to write on the document. And it's these tags allow you to have structure on this document. Now, currently, we have different versions of HTML, and we are currently on the HTML5 specification, which introduced new semantic elements and APIs like videos, which canvas, SVG elements, SVG manipulations. So the key HTML concept is for every HTML document, you need to have a document structure. And in that document structure, we need to have the doc type. And what the doc type is referred to is it is basically specifying, okay, what type of documents do we want to, use for this HTML element. Now, we use doc type HTML. In the past, there were other like doc types, but presently it is HTML that is being used for the web. Um, Now, for HTML itself, there's the HTML tag that needs to be on the document for it to identify as, okay, this is a website and it's an HTML document. So we use the HTML tag to specify that, okay, this is a HTML document structure. Now, the head is where we have the meta tags, we have the meta um, we describe what the document is for. So that's where we describe, okay, what the document is for. We have the title, we have the, so say for example, when you go on a site and you see the icon and you see the name of the site, maybe Google or Inbox or whatever, that's the title on the site. Usually that's where you place the title is where is inside the HTML head. Now, without the HTML head, we would not be able to identify, okay, this is what this page is for. That's what the HTML page is for. Now, the body is where you specify, okay, this is what I want to show to my users. So, for example, this page we're on right now, it has several HTML tags. We have H1s for, these topics. We have H tags for these topics. We have paragraphs for the um, lists. And then we have bulleted list UL for the unordered list. So there are different ways to style your body or different ways to go about your body. But typically, the structure of an HTML document is that you must have a heading, you must have a body, and you must have like paragraphs, links, navigations. It depends on what you want to do. But typically, you must have your head, you must have your body. That's what the structure of an HTML is. Now, let's move on to CSS. So CSS is referred to style sheet. Is referred to as a style sheet that is used to describe how you want to style your document. You can style your document in a myriad of ways. You can do it in different ways. Now you can make the background blue. You can make the text, look a certain kind of way. You can make your list look a certain kind of way. That is what CSS is used for. Now, you can do it in different way. CSS is typically used to control the layout, the colors, the fonts, spacing, and the responsiveness of your website. Now, if you recall from earlier on, I mentioned that without the role of the front-end developer is to ensure that whatever website you're building works on different devices. Now, without CSS, that isn't going to be possible. And CSS allows us to do that. Now, it like it says here, it allows for separation of content. HTML is for the structure, and CSS is for the styling how you want to present your document. Now, there are different features with CSS like animations, transitions, layouts. You can use Flexbox or Grid for this. Now, the key CSS concepts, we have selectors and specificity. Now, in order for you to style an element, would walk through all of this later on. Just give me a moment. I'm just giving you like an overview. In order for you to style an element, you need to be able to target that HTML tag and say, okay, I want to style this HTML tag a certain type of way. I want to make the background blue. I want to make the text color look a certain kind of way. That's what selectors and specificity is for. So then we have the box model. These are key CSS concepts, by the way. The box model basically is the ideology that for every content on your document, you have the border, you have the margin, and you have padding. Padding is basically the space between the contents and your border. And the margin is basically the space between, not the space, the margin is the outer layout between one element and another element on your HTML page. And the content itself is the actual content. So say, for example, this this paragraph here, we have the body, the content itself is the paragraph, right? Now, the padding is defined as the spacing between this text and its margin. In future, when we are dealing with CSS, we'll go through that and we'll describe that. But basically, there are key CSS concepts. And when we get to CSS, when we start talking about CSS, would go through that. So there are different layout techniques as well. In the past, we used to use floats to style elements and position elements on the document. But right now, the more modern technique is the use of Flexbox and Grid. And to ensure that your document it performs the same way on different devices, we use responsive design with media queries. Now, these media queries allow us to ensure that whatever website we're building, it functions well on different devices. Now, we also use typography and text styling. With typography and text styling, we need to ensure that whatever typography we are giving our document, we can style it to ensure that it meets our design. So that's what typography and text styling is for. For colors and backgrounds, it's typically just colors and backgrounds. Transitions and animations. So when you go to a site and you hover on a button, or when you go to a site and you scroll through it, the transition between scrolling and elements coming up on that page, that's what's referred to as transition. Animations allow us to modify our elements in different ways. And transition is just, okay, when I do this, this should happen. When I click on this icon, this should happen. When I scroll, this should happen. So that's what a transition is. And in order to, do more complex styling, we have CSS preprocessors, and there are quite a lot of CSS preprocessors. Well, the most common ones are SAS and LESS, but basically they allow you to style CSS in such a way that it's easy for you to read and it allows inheritance. So that's basically the concept of CSS. Any questions? Okay, if there aren't any, so I'll move on to JavaScript, which is the third foundation of building web applications. With JavaScript, it allows you to interact with elements on the web page. Now, without JavaScript, we'll just have static pages, which means you would not be able to go from one page to another. You would not be able to purchase. You'd not be able to have dynamic content. Now, with JavaScript, it allows you to, make your website or applications much more dynamic in the sense that, say, for example, now you're going to purchase an item or you're going through a property page, right? As you're scrolling through a property page, the click of a specific property is it takes you to that property page, right? Now that click that transitions you from one page to the other, that is JavaScript. And that is what it does, right? And that's just simplifying what JavaScript does, but it does a lot more than that. So it's a high-level interpreted programming language. When we say interpreted, it means usually when you type this in your code editor, it needs to be interpreted to an assembly language where your computer understands the language itself. Now, interpreted languages are for computers, it's basically zeros and ones. And in order for a computer to understand whatever you're typing in to your system, like the instruction you're giving it, it needs to interpret the code that you write. It needs to interpret that into low-level language, like assembly languages. So it's a high-level language. So basically, it allows you to write code for computer. So it adds interactivity and dynamic behavior to websites. I already described that earlier on. And it can manipulate the document object model to change content on the fly. Now, the concept of document object model is basically you have the DOM. It's so you have like your structure of your document, and it's a tree-like syntax that allows you to see how your document is laid out. And in order for you to be able to manipulate your document and your website, you need to be able to point to, okay, this is the specific part of my website I'm targeting. And the document object model basically allows us to specify the part of our website where we want to, change. So it's an array of HTML elements. That's why I see the document object model as. Now it enables asynchronous communication with servers. JavaScript would not be interactive if it doesn't communicate with servers. Like I gave an example earlier on, when you try to access a website, right, from the click of the button to log into that website, without you interacting with the server, JavaScript facilitates that interaction with the server. And we use languages like Ajax in the past, but they are much more modern. They are much more modern features like fetch and async and await to ensure that this interaction is seamless. Now, forms it forms the basis for many front-end frameworks and libraries. Yeah, so that's JavaScript. Now, in order for you to be able to work with JavaScript, you need to understand various concepts like variables, data types, and operators. That's going to be dealt with in the future when we like actually delve into code itself. You need to understand control structures. Now, control structures is basically okay if you're trying to make a decision, if this is happening, this should happen. And we use control structures to facilitate that. Functions and scoping. Functions allow you to, scope specific functionality together. So say, for example, you have purchase item. You can have a function for purchasing item. Say, for example, log out. You can have a function for logging out. So it allows you to have different functionalities for whatever functions you have on your site. So whatever interaction you have on your site, functions facilitates that. Objects and arrays. The most obvious way to store data on the front end, on the client side, is with objects and arrays. Now, objects is much more complex. Arrays is just sequential. Objects in with objects you can have nested um, data types. You can have functions as the value. You can have different type of values for objects, but with arrays you can also have different type of values, but with arrays you access it with an index. With objects you access it with dot notations. So that's the difference between objects and arrays, but typically the entire gist around objects and arrays is that it allows you to store data on the client side. So on your mobile phone, on your application, while you're in use of that application. So that's what objects and arrays are used for. DOM manipulation and events. Now, when you click on a button and you say, "Oh, I want to purchase this item," the action between clicking and actually, you know, performing that action, that is where that's what we call events. So when you click, that's an event. When you highlight items on your website, that's an event as well. When you over a certain item, that's an event. Um, so when you start typing, that's an event. So there are different type of events that can happen on your website, and JavaScript allows you to, manipulate these events. So whenever you type into your address bar, that's an event. Whenever you click on something, that's an event. Whenever you over something, that's an event. So that's what events JavaScript allows us to manipulate these events with the DOM. Now, I already explained what asynchronous programming is. Asynchronous programming is basically as your program goes from one stage to another, you are expecting for data to come. So, say for example, you're making a purchase. When you see a loading screen, right? That loading screen is basically, it's telling you that, okay, I'm making a request to the server. Once this server returns my request, I would be able to answer whatever request you want me to do from on this page. So asynchronous programming is basically allowing you to do multiple things at the same time while you are on the page. So you can be making a request to the server and still be, scrolling on the page. So it's not stopping you from interacting with the page while doing some other thing on the same page. So that's what asynchronous programming is. Then ESS plus features. ESS plus features are new JavaScript concepts that allow you to do multiple actions with JavaScript, like arrow functions, destructuring, spread operators, um, and all of that with models. You can also use models with ESS. And Ajax and working with APIs, I already mentioned that with asynchronous programming. Any question for now? Is it okay to start React before completely mastering JavaScript? Can we proceed to it just after knowing basics of JS? Well, yes, you can proceed to JavaScript after, you can proceed to React after learning the foundations of JavaScript. But I would really advise you to, you know, understand JavaScript very well, because without the understanding of JavaScript, it would be difficult for you to master React, because React is basically JavaScript, and it's, you have to learn a new syntax. You have to understand what each feature of React does, like use states, hooks, and all of those things. You need to understand what it does. And without the foundation of JavaScript, it will be difficult for you to actually, okay, have an understanding that, okay, the technology behind these things, this is how they function, and this is how to make use of them in React. So I would advise that you master JavaScript properly. You understand how to manipulate the DOM. You understand asynchronous programming. You understand how to fetch data. You understand how to manipulate a lot of things on the web page before you then proceed to React. Please, I'll tell how to use Bootstrap in React. So there are different ways you can go about using Bootstrap in React. First off, you can go to the website. I think they should have a package as well, an npm package. You can use that, and you can install that package on your website and then use the classes from there. But typically, if you're to just use it with HTML, you could just go to the website, Bootstrap website, and get the CDN link and embed that in your HTML head. That way you'll be able to use Bootstrap on your HTML site. But if you're using it in React, there should be a package for Bootstrap. I've not used Bootstrap with a package before, but there should be a package for that. So any more questions? So which, like I said, React is a much more advanced state of JavaScript, and you need to understand JavaScript properly before transitioning into React. And without understanding JavaScript properly, it will be difficult for you to, grasp React for what it is. The JXS, the use states, the life cycles, the use effects, the hooks, and all of those things. It's going to be difficult because you have to think of developing applications in an entirely different mental model that is different from the basics. So you have to understand JavaScript before transitioning into React. And we will definitely get there in this series. But for now, it's just, well, I'll move on to the essential tools. So in order for you to write HTML and CSS on JavaScript, you need to have like editors. Now, in the past, you could use your text editor, um, in fact, you can still use it as long as you're not doing more than HTML, right? If you're just doing HTML, you can use your text editor to see what you're doing. So you can just use your text editor, or you can use VS Code And in order for you to use VS Code, you can do this. Let me share my screen. I'm going to share my entire screen and then yep. Okay, so we have different tools for text editing. There's Visual Studio Code, and you have Sublime Text, but what is most popular is Visual Studio Code. And in order for you to download it, you come to the site here. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. And I know most of you probably are using this already if you're already into development. So come to the chat here, you download this, and then after downloading, you go through the installation process. And after going through the installation process, you should have everything set up. Now, one of the benefits of using text editors is that it is highly customizable, and it's allows you to, install extensions and add-ons. It's basically, it provides you with extra powers, right? Unlike your regular text editor where you're just typing. That's basically like Microsoft Word, but with text editors like Visual Studio Code, Sublime Text, you are able to do things easily. You're able to have syntax highlighting. You're able to have IntelliSense. You're able to debug easily, right? So there's that it makes coding easier, to put it that way. Yeah, it makes coding very easier. And we have various text editor. I make use of what's it called? I make use of IntelliJ, WebStorm, but the most popular one is Visual Studio Code. And I also make use of Visual Studio Code once in a while. And Sublime Test as well. So these are the process, and let me just show you how to go about it. Downloading. Now, once you click on the download the system, process. I already have it, so I don't have to go through that process all over again. But basically, yeah, that's how to go about it. Now, like I mentioned earlier, as a front-end developer, you mostly spend your time on the web, right? And the web, you have various web browsers for it. You have Google Chrome, you have Mozilla, you have Edge, you have Safari. So with these browsers, it is your role as a front-end developer to ensure that what across these browsers. And in order for you to ensure that, you need to understand these browsers and how they work. You need to understand the, ins and outs of how they work. And for you to understand them, you you must be able to understand how to, inspect elements. You must be able to understand how to debug on these browsers. You must be able to understand, okay, how to see where your request is going to, what is returned from the request from the server, the response returned, how to, to see the response type, all of those things. And you can't do that without not understanding the browser itself. And in order for you to understand the browser, you need to take time, understand, okay, what are the features of my browser that I used to develop? Okay, how do I go about debugging in Chrome, for example? How do I go about checking performance in Chrome? How do I go about, okay, simulating network conditions on Chrome or how do I go about these things? How do I go about testing animations on the browser? So basically, your entire um, your entire development is going to be on the browser. And in order for you to build things that is usable, you need to understand your browser and how to, make it work for you. So we have different type of browsers: Mozilla, Chrome, Firefox, and the likes. So basically, they all have the same feature, but you need to find how to do specific things in different browsers. Like you can't expect to understand how performance work on Chrome. You can't expect it to be the same way, the layout of, oh, this is how to go about checking the performance of my website on Chrome. You don't expect it to be the same on Mozilla Firefox. So it entirely depends on you as an individual. It depends on you and which browser you use to develop. You need to understand it properly. We'll come to that later, by the way. So in order for you to be a good front-end developer as well, you need to understand what is called the command line. Now, how I understand the command line is I see it as you're using text to interact with your computer, right? And you don't have to use mouse. You don't have to, start clicking. You don't need a graphic user interface to interact with your computer. And my understanding of the command line is you can use your keyboard to tell your computer to do anything. Like you can use it to do anything. So as programmers, we are often trying to ensure that, okay, we are doing things as fast as possible. And in order for us to do things as fast as possible, we use the command line, we use our keyboards rather than looking for a graphical user interface. Like, for example, you're trying to, find a file on your system. You don't have to go through, oh, let me go through my file explorer, let me start checking for or searching through. No, you don't have to go through that. And for us to do that, you need there's the command line, command prompt. I don't know if you're on Windows, you use command prompt. I don't know if you guys are seeing this part of my screen. Okay, yeah. Okay. I was here. Yeah, use the command prompts. And let's just go through like the basics, like the bare basics. In order for you to, go to a specific directory. Now, for me to access my desktop, all I need to do is cd, right? Change directory, go to desktop, and okay, sorry, let me check this. Why can't you? Okay, let me start it with all right. Okay. So what was happening was I didn't have the right permission to work on that directory. So I just granted myself an administrator permission. So you might experience this as well. All you just have to do is, you just have to, what's the right word again? You just have to request, you start as administrator, you open the program as an administrator, not start as an administrator. You open the program, you open your command prompts as an administrator. I know on Apple, there should be a command line tool as well, but I'm not familiar with Apple. But basically on Windows, you use the command prompt. And in order to access my desktop, all I just have to do is cd, and what cd does is change directory. We're telling my computer to go to a specific directory on my system. And I'm saying desktop. Why can't it find? Oh. So I'm still not ls. Wow. Jesus. Why can't you find console? Just give me a moment. I don't know. Command prompt. Sure. So I'm going to run the PowerShell as an administrator. Okay, so I had like permission issues. I don't know what's going on with my system, but I had permission issues. So I'm using the PowerShell. You can also to make use of the command line basis. You can also use git bash. I use git bash regularly, so I never use Windows or command prompts. And this is what git bash is like. So I can use git bash, I can use the PowerShell. But basically, all we're trying to do is access users. Okay, so just wow, no search file or directory. So what I did here was I went to the root directory of my system, right? And I'm going to go to the specific user change directory. So why is it not showing desktop exactly? ls desktop. Desktop is not here. Okay, so these are all the folders within this user, right? Now, I was trying to explain the command line, and before we got distracted by the interruptions and the errors. So basically, the CD allows you to change directory, right? I can decide to change directory and go to Webstone project, right? And I'm going to show you something afterwards. Webstone project. Now I'm in the Webstone project. Inside this Webstone projects folder, right? There are several folders in there, and these are all the folders in there. And in order for me to access them, I just said lists contents, right? ls. ls is the command you use to show whatever is inside the directory you're in presently. And pwd is print working directory. It allows you to show you the paths that you're currently on your system. So let me just show you typically how this is. So this is the PC. This is my PC, right? And coming here, I'm accessing the C drive. This is the users, right? This is me. This is the file I just accessed, Webstone projects. As you can see, these are all the projects within Webstone projects. So instead of me going through that process of, clicking one by one and trying to access via the graphical user interface, I can just do that with the command line. Now, I can also create files with the command line. I can do touch, let's say, Vicky's foundation.txt. .txt. Now, if I list the contents of this Webstorm project, you should see Vicky's foundation.txt. Now, let's check downloads. Not here. Yeah. So I'm going to open graphical user interface as well here again to ensure that you can see that there's a file. So we have a txt file already. I just created a file without going through the process of. So basically, the command line interface allows you to do things very fast without, scrolling and using your mouse to navigate here and there. So we can use make directory. So I created a file previously. Make directory allows you to create a folder. It helps you create a folder. RM allows you to remove or delete a folder. I can decide to, let me create a folder first and then delete it. Make directory folder. Yeah. So I just created a folder. Listing, sorry that I forgot to increase my screen size for you guys to see. So, in order to see the folder I just created, I'm just going to do ls. Yeah, I think I did ls already. And T folder. Yeah, there it is. Folder here. Now, in order for me to remove the folder, I just need to do rm folder. So typically, command lines don't allow you to remove folder, because the reason why there's a restriction around that is you might have several files in it, and when you use the command line, there's no warning, right? And you might just delete files like that. Now, in order for you to delete a folder, you need to do rf folder. Now, if I should list the folders here, you should not see folder again. Now, what the RF is a recursive flag. So basically, it says, go through the folder, go through all the files within the folder, and delete everything, including the folder. That's what the RF is. So, yeah, basically, that's the gist of the command line, by the way. So these are all the commands that you can use to manipulate things on the command line. When it's time to actually, do things, would explain it in more details. So have you guys been able to download the Visual Studio Code? Because we're going to be moving on to a more is there any Is there any question for now? If there's any question, you can drop it in the chat. I'm happy to give my understanding. Okay, so if there is no questions, then we can then move on to HTML itself and discuss HTML and this document structure. Now we've been talking about it all this while. Now it's time to actually get into, the the coding part of it. So I would share my screen, and I would share this part of my screen as well. Let me do this. Okay, so I'm just going to. So I'm sharing this. I'm creating a sample HTML file, sample.html. Now, in order for us to create an HTML file or a web page, right? We need a document, which I've explained earlier on. And for us to create this document, we need HTML. And HTML allows us to, create the structure of this document. Now, typically, the first thing required for you when creating HTML documents is doc type HTML. Basically, what this tells us is it declares that this document is an HTML document, and it says, okay, this is the doc type HTML. So that's what we need. That's usually the first thing on your HTML file. Now, the next thing on your HTML file is HTML itself, the HTML tag. We call these things tags, HTML tag. Now, as you can see, we have the opening and the closing tag. Now, with HTML tags, this is the opening part of the tag. This is the opening part of the tag, and this is the closing part of the tag. So basically, it's like we are saying, okay, this is the opening part of the document, and this is the closing part of the document. And it's the root element of your page. So this is where every other thing will come into. Without this, you don't have a document. Without this, you need to have this element. You need to have this tag for you to have a HTML document. Now, there's something called attributes in HTML. Attributes just describes what the tag is for. Now, typically in HTML, you can use the language attributes to say, oh, this document I'm creating is going to be in English. So EN. And you can have FR, which is France. You can have various languages, but what we are going to be using is EN. So we are saying this web page that I'm about to create is going to be in English. Now, after the HTML document, you need the head. Basically, the head is it allows you to put in information about the document. That is what the head is for. Now, so I'll just add the head here. We're adding another head element here. And as you can see, it comes with an opening and closing tag as well. And inside this head, we have several tags as well. So we have the meta tag that specifies, let me just add, sorry, meta car search. Now we have the meta tag that specifies, oh, this is the characters that are going to be on this page. So you could have Greek characters, you could have Arabic characters, you could have different kind of character encoding, right? Now we're specifying that we're going to be using UTF-8, which is the standard for your regular day-to-day, English language character encoding. So it's UTF-8. So that's what we're going to be using. Then we're going to specify. So the meta tag is just describing the documents, and it's saying, oh, this is the character set that we're going to be using, right? You can see this doesn't have like a closing tag. So in HTML, there are different type of tags. We have tags that have opening and closing tags. We have tags that have um, that just they don't have closing tags, and we have self-closing tags as well. Self-closing tags are like your inputs, some other things, right? But for Meta, it's literally like used to describe the documents on the page. And we are specifying that the characters that are going to be on this document, it is mostly going to be a UTF-8 character encoding. That's what we're going to. And what it means is your typical day-to-day text, emojis. That's what UTF-8 means, like your typical day-to-day characters. So moving on, then we have another meta tag. So we're saying, so with this meta tag now, we're specifying the name, which is going to be it's going to be viewport. It's going to be viewport, weight, device weight, and initial scale. It's going to be that. Just initial scale is going to be 0. So basically what we're saying here is we are saying the viewport. That means if it's a mobile device, we want the viewport to be 100% of that mobile device. If it's a web, if it's a monitor, we want the viewport to be as large as whatever devices that this page is going to be on. That's what the viewport is. And we're specifying that the content should be the width of the device width. So whatever content we are putting in that document structure is going to be the width of device width, whether that be your phone, your monitor, your laptop. We are specifying that, and we are saying the scale should be 1. We don't want it to zoom out. We don't want it to zoom in. We don't want it to, to be shrinked. We want it to just be normal. And that's what the initial scale is about. 1. We're specifying that the initial scale should be 1. Now, moving on, we're going to have a title for our page. Intro to Frontend Dev. Now, this is basically just going to identify your page and what it's for. It's basically telling everybody, okay, this is what this page is for. And typically you find it at this title, you find it in your tab. So when you open a new site, that text beside the site logo, that's what the title is. So if you say intro to front-end development, that's what is going to be on the site, intro to front-end development. So this is what the title is going to be. I'll show you what it looks like later on, but I'm just showing you the basic structure of an HTML document. Now, when you have the title, then you then have the body. The body is where all the magic happens. This is where all the magic happens. This is where all your content goes. Sorry, I'm commenting like I'm in JavaScript. Content goes here. Content should be here. So this is where all your content goes. This is where you see, this is where all the things that you see on your website, this is where everything is inside. And for different type of websites, you have different structure, different things. Now, we're going to discuss HTML later on in details, but let's go through the common HTML elements. We have headings. Now, when you say website, you have like various headings on there. You have H1, you have H2, you have H3, H2, H1 to, we have H1 to H6 in HTML to specify as headings. Now, these are tags. Let me just type them here. H1, heading 1, H2, heading 2, H3, sorry, heading 3. So basically, we have up to 6, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. 4, 4, 5, and 6. We have up to 6 of this, and they all have their own tags. So for each of these headings, the higher you go, so the largest of them all is H1. So I don't know the specific size to be precise, but H1 is basically, oh, this is the largest text I want to have on my website, right? So it's going to be the heading, the main heading of the website itself. So when you have H1, typically you always have just one H1 for a document. And this is for accessibility purposes, because you want to specify the most important thing on your website. So they have different sizes, and as they go down, this sizes scale down. They scale down, and H6 is the smallest heading. So I like to categorize them as H1 is like a proper heading, the main heading of your web page. H2 is like a sub heading. H3 is like the sub heading. H4 is like sub heading. So that's how I think of these headings. So that's how I think of them. Now, this is one of the most common elements in HTML. I'll just type headings. So this is how you write comments to in HTML. You use the great lesser than sign, the exclamation mark, dash, dash, and then write whatever comment you want to. So another important element for HTML is the paragraphs. And the paragraph is basically your text. Right in here. So it's basically your typical text that you see on a day-to-day basis on any website. And this is, there's not much to say about it. It's just plain text. And we have links in order for you to have, this is an auto completion, by the way, but basically the structure of a link is, it's an A tag. It takes the link that you want to access as an href. Href is an attribute that says, oh, we're going to be referring to another website. Yeah. And this is the link to that website. So this is what this href is for here. And so we are specifying we want to go to google.com. So this visits Google is the text you see. And once you click on this text, it takes you to google.com. So You can also, link your pages internally to, say, for example, I could have another page on this website here. So let me just do that. Let me show you. So as you can see, I have other pages here. I can link to other pages within this website as well. So this is known as relative URLs. That is referring to URL within your application itself, not externally, right? So that is what is referred to as relative URL. So basically, once I click on visit YouTube, it will take me to this HTML document, this overview.html, which is within my file. So yeah, that is what the link tags are for. And then we have the list tags. So we have different type of lists, by the way. So we have the unordered lists and we have the ordered lists. So in HTML, you can have ordered lists and unordered lists. For ordered lists, you're basically saying, I want 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, time has gone. So, and this should be the last for today. So the last section for today. So we're basically saying for ordered lists, we want to say, oh, we want it numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? We want it numbered. For unordered lists, we're saying, just give me an icon or something, a bulleted list. So when you see this on the page, it should be a bullet list item 1. When you see this on the page itself, it should be a bullet list item 1, bullet list item 2, bullet list item 3. For ordered lists, you should see 1, 2, 3, right? Now, you can manipulate this list into displaying what you want, right? For ordered list, for example, you can order it in different ways, but that's for some other time, and I don't think it's necessary. You use the list to, list items, and except if you have that specific use case, right? Then I don't think you have to go through that. But basically, we have two types of list, major type of list. We have the ordered list and the unordered list, and this is how you represent them. Then we have tables. So in HTML, so you have tables, and when you go to a website and you see tables that are, that are used to represent data, it is basically with this table tag, right? This table tag in itself doesn't do anything. Without these things, yeah, right? They don't do anything. So if you don't have any of these things, the table would not do anything. It just gives you, it's telling, oh, I want to create a table. That's what this table tag is for. It has an opening tag and a closing tag. Now, in here, you're saying, I want to have a table row. Now, for a table row, I want to have headings within this table row. So each heading, this heading per se would be one column. Heading 1 would be one column. Heading 2 would be another column. Heading 3 would be another column. And they are all within the same row, table row. So that's what this is for. TR is table row, TH is table head. Now, just picture a typical table. You have the head, you have the rows that has the data, right? the head specifies the columns and the rows specify the data. Now, we are going to have another row that specifies the data. Now, that's why we need this TR. Now, with TR, we have the TD, row 1, column 1. This is going to go under header 1. Row 1, column 2 is going to go under header 2. Row 1, column 3 is going to go header 3. So yeah, to create multiple rows, you just have to repeat yourself, right? Row 2, column 1, specify the heading. You don't have to specify column 1 here. It is just the data. TD is specifying the data you want to put into each column. So that's what TD does. So yeah, those are like the basic elements of HTML for now. And when we start building, stuff together, we should go more deeply into these things. But yeah, that should be all for today. And if you do have any questions, please let me know. Just to show you the websites. So this is what it looks like at the moment. Let me stop sharing. Sure. So this is what it looks like at the moment. As you can see, the heading one is the more dominant header with a large text. Heading 2 is a subheading. Heading 3 subheading of the subheading. So you can see goes down to heading 6, and as they go down, they increment down to minute font sizes. Now, this is a paragraph, like I mentioned earlier. How we did this was with the P tag. And this is a paragraph on the site itself. These are links. As you can see, we can't see any of the anchor tags, which is the A tags that has the href. We can't see that. All we are saying is the visit Google, the text between the anchor tag. And once you click on visit Google, it should take you to Google. So yeah, that's what the anchor tag does. These are list items, the L1s. List items, this is unordered, and you can see this is ordered. So this is OL. This is OL, sorry, the OL, and this is the UL, unordered list item. This is the table. So because it's looking this way because we have not styled it, and that is the domain of CSS. So when we get into CSS, we can talk about styling much more further. And yeah, that's about it for today. Any questions? Any questions, please? If there are no questions, then we would end the stream today. But for assignments, I would like for you guys to try building websites with these elements. Just try building or try replicating these elements and seeing how you're able to replicate them. So we'll see you again next week. Hopefully in a much more better position. And so see you guys later. All right, take care.